Hi everyone, I'm Adrienne Sponberg. I am Director of Communications and Science for ASLO. And today we're going to have a little chat with a collaborator of ours, Brian Palermo. And we're going to talk a little bit about collaboration. But first, I want to give Brian an opportunity to introduce himself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Brian Palermo. I'm a communications consultant. I come from the world of theater. I've been an improv actor for 30 years, and I've used that for the past 9 years as a tool for teaching science communication, collaboration, active listening, narrative structure, stuff that you may not get much training in. So hopefully I can give you some stuff that helps.
Great. So part of the reason we're having this conversation today is ASLO has a new project. As Brian mentioned, we've been working together for many years on science communication training, helping scientists learn how to tell their story, develop better active listening skills to enhance communication and dialogue. But now we're moving on to this new program, which started on September 1st, and it's called LOREX. It's the Limnology and Oceanography Research Exchange Program, and it's geared towards providing training for graduate students to learn how to build international research collaborations. And as we were putting that proposal together, I wanted to get Brian engaged because so much of what I've taken from your workshops, Brian, is this whole idea of communication is absolutely the foundation of collaboration. And you have to have this give and take, right?
And let me tag on that for a quick second. We found decades ago, improvisers, that if you can improvise a theatrical scene with someone and you're making it up, there are certain skills that go with that, certain rules and guidelines. And number one is active listening with your partner. So it's not about just what's in your head and getting out your agenda. It's listening to their message and trying to work with them. So much of this improv stuff is so directly applicable to communications writ large. So that's how I got involved in this.
Yep. Excellent. Yes. And, we as scientists sometimes, and usually when you and I are working together face to face, it's at the ASLO conferences. And, one of the things we talk with participants in the workshops about is like the Q&A period after oral presentations. And, you're so nervous when you're standing up there and someone starts to ask a question and you just, in your head, you automatically you're already scripting your answer and you're no longer listening. And so I think that you take those kinds of challenges that we have and you throw in the extra barriers of an international collaboration.
Yeah.
And, and I remember in Granada, we were just talking about Granada, we had some extra challenges with some of the improv games where the numbers, or even just the fact that people weren't native English speakers, like things that, we
little
think are
stumbling blocks that you don't think of very often, and they can become bigger barriers when you're trying to work with somebody. And you may do for, how long is this sort of internship? 6 months or a year?
It's 4 to 8 weeks.
Okay, so still that's 2 months, and that's a lot of time to not understand each other effectively.
Right. Well, and also it's when you're working on a research project and you're on a tight time frame, like you don't have a lot of time to figure this stuff out. So there's a lot of pressure. But before our students get there, right now the application period is open and they are reaching out to PIs and any of the host institutions. And we had this conversation last week and I thought it would be helpful to revisit it. Kind of like, wow, this is a really awkward thing for students to have to do, to reach out and say, hey, I want to come crash in your lab for 4 to 8 weeks. What's up? So, you had some thoughts on how to, use some of the tips that we've talked about with science communication and make that into a good approach. So maybe you want to talk about that.
Well, let me throw some basic stuff out. Often in the sciences, in the science enterprise, you're trained not to use any emotion in your communication whatsoever because emotion is seen as irrational and less credible. There's been a lot of studies over the past decades or so that show that you want to be more effective in your communications, you have to use some emotion. And I'm always very clear, I try to be, about I don't mean hysterical, the sky is falling stuff, but using your passion for why you got into the sciences in the first place. Let that out a little bit. You want to share that with someone whom you hope to collaborate with, so they recognize in you someone who is a self-starter, someone who is interested in their work, someone who's not just doing this to get their amount of hours or trying to get the, the next step of their degree. They're really passionate about this work and they want to do the work. So using a little bit of your emotion of why you're interested, why you're amazed by your subject, how you think it will help next steps, all that, let that out a little bit. And often science communicators are not trained to do that. So that's one first step, is using a little bit of your emotion, a little bit of what brought you to this specialty in the first place. That's one thing. Second, and more in line with the collaborative aspect, is you've got to put the focus on the other person. So while you're looking for an internship or asking to be a collaborator on a certain research project, you've got to be thinking about the other people. How can you help them? What do they do well that you need to learn from or that you'd like to learn from? So putting the focus on them without just being a complimentary list of flattery is very important to get that listener's attention. So those two things, using emotion and focusing on the other person, hopefully will lead you to put your information into a structure that will also be the third sort of benefit for getting your message across. Do you want me to go into that quick structure?
Yes, please do.
All right. So Randy Olson is a scientist turned filmmaker. He was how I got into this world of science communication in the first place. He is developed a sort of very, very simple formula for narrative structure called the ABT. And I'm sure we could throw some links here. ABT stands for and, but, and therefore. It's a very simple formula that's very effective of putting a bunch of data or information into a story structure, a structure that's got a beginning, sort of middle, and an end. A simple example would be most people start by sharing their message as a list of things. I am a grad student in this specialty. I want to work on this. I'd like to work with this, and. I do this well. I want. That's just a list, and it's very undynamic to make up a word. You're going to lose the interest from your viewer or your reader. So you want to structure it, your pitch, your message, as a story structure. So the ABT lays it out as, I am a graduate student in marine biology. I want to study deep thermal, and I want to study deep thermal vents. That's your just little and to start off. But I don't have access to proper research. Therefore, I'd love to work with you, Professor so-and-so, to get more access to the best research right now and to help you with your research. So it's a very simple ABT, and I just butchered it a little bit longer than it has to be. That opening sentence should be very short and to the point.
Yeah. No, I think that's important. And, another part of the conversation we had last week was, for anyone who has reviewed these kinds of applications, like when I do the science communication internship, when we do the Eco Days applications, I think, when you're writing this letter, try to remember that these people are going to be reading a lot of these. And it is just like, everybody's like, and it's like, everybody
wants to establish their bona fides, and that makes sense. But it's like, in high school, I was in the science club, and I was the captain of the blah, 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 and I did research for a while in the swamps of blah, blah. And I get it. You're trying to establish your credibility, but that list of ands is a very boring dynamic, and the reader then tunes out. So you might have a place to attach your resume elsewhere. You don't have to put it all out in that first line.
Yeah, exactly. And, as I'm reviewing those letters, if I turn the page and I still have no idea why they're applying for this internship or fellowship, whatever, then I've already mentally tuned out. Yeah.
They've lost you. There's got to be a bit of a targeted, it's got to be a dart. That communications is a skill, and you've got to learn these things to how to get your reader or your viewer, your listener, engaged with your message right off the bat. And this, starting with something like this, is a very, very good first start.
Yeah.
First step.
Now, one of the interesting ideas you had last week, and maybe this is the good time to bring it up.
Sure. I've only had one or two interesting ideas my whole life. Okay.
Was the idea of a video cover letter.
Yeah, that just came out as we were discussing. But the idea of maybe a 60-second short introductory video as if it's a cover letter, a vid coverlet.
We'll figure something out.
You just you could practice. You could script out your ABT of why you want to work with this person, and then it's video. You can convey a little bit of your emotion, so it's not so dry. Text only mediums such as emails and texts and letters, just analog letters, allow the reader to put a whole bunch of story into their head about why you're interested. They don't get to see you. They don't get to hear you. They don't get to take in if you're, really interested and passionate about this. Are you a fun person that they want to collaborate with for 2 months? That's a small element of this, but it's a true element. Nobody wants to work with a boring person who's just, not engaged in their own subject. So a video cover letter might be a new thing to try out, where very brief, 30 to 60 seconds, I would suggest, in the top of your email, let the reader then see how you communicate, how you express yourself, and see what kind of passion and personality you bring to this. And I think it's just a good way of introducing yourself, one more step of introducing yourself, so that you might have one step up on the 5,000 other people who are trying to get the same internship.
Right. Yeah, so, this is something to consider for the next cycle of applications for LOREX, or I think definitely for the next round of the science communication internship. I'm going to employ this. So I guess the next step in this would be to see if we can find some volunteers, right?
Yeah, and I think anybody, as you're applying to collaborate, research projects, internships, I don't know everything that you'd be applying for, but this is going to be a great tool for anybody applying for anything. So do it with us within this ASLO LOREX sort of internship thing as a practice or whatever. Just do it for yourself. And like all of us, all humans, it's universal. You're going to see yourself recorded and hear your voice, and you're going to go, oh, I don't like that. I don't think great. Do it again. Throw it away. It's all digital. Record it 20 times before you get one that you like. And then that's something that you might be able to use going forward. So it's just a really good experiment for you. It's a communications experiment. And I think it might yield very, very good results.
I think it could too. And, we talked about too, how this could be really interesting in terms of getting to see how you're projecting your emotions. What emotions are you projecting?
Right. Most people will think, oh my gosh, I was so expressive there. And when you look at it from a subjective eye outside, it's like, oh no, I wasn't very big at all. You still have room to go a little bit further. I obviously talk with my hands a lot. I'm realizing that as I'm looking, but I knew it beforehand.
Right.
It's just a way of expressing yourself and showing that you're interested in this project. So it's not, hi, my name is Brian. I want to study things that are, you're going to disconnect from your reader, and it's not going to help you. Don't serve you. Right.
Well, and two, that's the kind of stuff, the tone doesn't come through in cover letters. Right. And when you are reviewing application after application, no matter how much enthusiasm someone has, like it's the, hi, my name is Brian. I want to, so, I think this idea of having some kind of a video pitch, is great for interviews, but also, we talk about having elevator pitches. That's like one of the big things we tell any scientist to do. Even someone who's well-established, happy in their job, you need to have that 20-second, here's who I am, here's what I do. And I think, technology being what it is, it's so easy now to, look in the camera, practice, and review it and be like, oh, I need to work on that, or that didn't sound quite right. It's very different.
You hear your own tone, and you get an idea of how someone who doesn't know you, someone who's not inside your own head, might perceive you. Because very often how we think we're presenting ourselves is not how we're perceived by other people. So this is a really valuable experiment to do, and do it until you like it. Yeah, great. So with that, one thing you and I had talked about, and I'm hoping we find some volunteers out there in social media world. What we would love to do is critique some of these video cover letters. So if anyone wants to do a video cover letter, it could be for LOREX, it could be for anything, it could be your elevator pitch. What we would like to do is offer you personalized feedback on your video cover letter. And then,
what we'll be able to do, that will help us create some kind of a guidelines of like, what are the things to watch for? Because this is a new idea.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So brief recap, I'd say three things is you
Mm-hmm.
want to express with some emotion. That's one. Use the ABT so you can put it into a story, a narrative structure that's easily understood. And number three is put the focus on the other person. So although you're pitching yourself, that's one aspect of it. Another aspect should be why you want to work with that researcher. What do they offer and what can you bring back to them, putting the focus on them, because humans are all animals and everything comes through the filter of how does this affect me, right? So that's what you're doing, but you want to be aware of how does it affect your reader, the person that you're trying to get on with.
Yep. Excellent. Okay. Well, with that, is there anything else that you wanted to bring up?
No, that was all. I'm looking at my notes. That's everything I had. Oh, just the idea of focusing on the other and with an idea towards collaboration. I think you want to put a little bit of effort into the idea that you're willing to do the grunt work, but you also want to do as challenging work as you can. Let that person know that you don't want to just fetch coffee for 8 weeks. You want to be involved in it. And what will you bring to this?
Right. Excellent. Yeah, I don't think anyone wants to fetch coffee. So.
No, not for that long.
No. Okay. Excellent. So thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
And looking forward to seeing you. Brian will be with us in San Juan doing workshops both for LOREX and for the broader community. So keep an eye out on ASLO's social media channels for more announcements about when those are.
Great.
All right. Thanks, Brian.
You're welcome. Thanks, Adrienne.
All right.